Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temko and today I'm very happy to bring you the review for Homeworld, Deserts of Kharak. Now, because of the size of the game, we've decided to split this video in 3 segments. First, we will take a look at the technical options and how the game runs, and you can skip that part if that's not your sort of thing. I've put an annotation somewhere on the screen. Then we will dive into the single player and show you how the game plays and the story and its strengths and weaknesses. And lastly, we will dive into a multiplayer match with the AI, because there's obviously no players in a press release, and show you how that is going to pan out in our opinion. Now, after that, we can go for ice cream after, because we're all tired from the sun. So, Homeworld is a title that has been with us since 1999, and its sequel Homeworld 2 was brought to us in 2003, so these games have been around for a while. I mean, I can even remember rushing home from school to play 15 or 20 minutes more of it. And by some miracle, the Homeworld Remastered Edition on Steam is actually pretty amazing and does exactly what it says for modern systems. So giving you a chance to experience these amazing titles today with today's system, so that's really good. Both of the original games were brought to us by Relic Entertainment, and these are the guys you will probably know today from Company of Heroes. They were bought by Sony 2 years ago, and they've given us quite a few games over the last 2 decades. So when I heard that a different developer was getting Homeworld to build a new game, I was skeptical, to say the least. I mean, can another studio even get the feel of Homeworld right? The game was pretty unique in both the control scheme as well as its gameplay, and messing that up would break the homeworldness of the game quite badly, making it just yet another RTS that is subpar. So later I found out that Gearbox were going to be the ones working on Deserts of Kharak, and they were also the ones that did the remastered series, so I was getting hopeful. Well, how hopeful? Let's dive into the options menu and find out. Starting in the video options, we can see most of what you'd expect in a modern RTS game, with a range of resolution options, thankfully this time in a drop-down window, as well as full screen on or off. No full screen windowed mode sadly, and well, they have VSync, which you'd expect. Shadow quality from off to high, fog, bloom, anti-aliasing on or off, and this is weird because they do have a slider for anisotropic filtering, but not for anti-aliasing. Is this FXAA, SMAA? Is it times 2, times 4, times 32? I don't know. It's really weird. It's a weird oversight. Other than that, texture quality goes all the way up to ultra. The game does look pretty nice for an RTS. Obviously, RTS never look as pretty as a Crysis or a different shooter would, but the game does look pretty nice even so. And decal draw distance as well, which is good. FX for dynamic decals, nlips, which decides how far away a unit is from the screen and if it should render it smaller or bigger. And this is really good, but this is one of the core ideas of Homeworld, is these large battlefields. So if units far away, obviously it looks tiny. And then you have FX, quality, maximum LOD, physics, animations, and so on. These are all unit-related things that you have to, make the game playable if you have a ton of units on the field, especially in multiplayer matches with 4 or 6 players. This can turn out to be quite a heavy system performance hog, so it's pretty good that they've added these options. Now, next up is sound. You can change master volume, cinematic, and music volume. Cinematic volume also is for the voice volume in the cinematic trailers. So the game speech volume is not related to that. Game speech volume is the in-game chatter you have when you select a unit or deselect a unit. And so on. So that's kind of the chat you have. And you can change the amount of chatter you get if that's really annoying. It does get repetitive after an hour or 10, but I personally like it, so I put it on ultra because I really want to see all the chatter. Like, give these units some life. Other than that, you have game SFX volume, which I've cranked a little bit lower than the default, but overall it's all pretty well and fine. And you obviously have subtitles on or off, down in below, and default settings obviously are everywhere. Now let's go to controls, and while the controls are pretty extensive, they're pretty well set up as far as controls go, with various unit groups, and you can have quite a few options and here and there, and even combined keys. They are not rebindable. That's pretty unforgivable. I mean, it's an RTS game. How the hell can you not have rebindable keys? So yeah, there's nothing really to add. The options are good, they're explained in the tutorial, they're pretty simple, but they're not rebindable. And it's frustrating as hell to relearn a reimagined control scheme for every RTS game. Most games follow the same scheme more or less, and if you have a different RTS game, even if it's StarCraft or Command and Conquer or whatever other game you've played that is an RTS, they all pretty much follow the same control scheme. When a game deviates from that, it's really, really annoying. So I don't like that they are not rebindable. They're good, they're pretty set up, they're pretty extensive, but they're not rebindable. So I don't like it. Lastly, we're going to go to gameplay, and gameplay has a couple of language options as well as camera, pan, scroll, and movement speed. I've put these on 50%, that's the default. It works pretty well. Any higher and the camera jumps around too much for my preferred taste, but overall it's pretty good. Then you have camera pitch zoom. I've turned this on, you can turn it off. It looks pretty, but it does negatively impact your camera control if you're playing with more precision. Sensors reset, which is what happens when you go out of the sensor mode. I'll show that in a little bit. And then the camera angle resets instead of containing the same when you had in sensor mode. And then you have tactical overlay, focus units on click, and unit sticky selection, that the camera stays focused on units so if you do not track a unit when it's going somewhere. I've turned these off because they're really, really annoying. I want to give a command and be somewhere else on screen without having to do that. But there's definitely benefits to having them turned on if you're playing in a large battlefield. And then you have show all chat and show team chat. I like that they've added these options because the game does have an online component, and it can get really, really annoying to have to listen to the enemy chat, or even if you're playing with random players, your team's chat, so to say. So that is pretty good. Now, that brings us to the end of the option menu. It's a pretty decent option menu. The main notable exception being the lack of key bindings. So, without any further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the campaign and dive into some gameplay. Now, gameplay consists of a 13 mission campaign, of which one mission is more or less a tutorial. You can finish this in a reasonable 6 or 7 hours, depending on how much time you waste messing around in the game. And depends on the difficulty level. Easy is probably a bit faster than normal. I finished the entire thing on normal in about 6 hours. You can probably crank the difficulty up to classic, which is basically hard, especially if you're a bit of more seasoned RTS player, because normal was a little bit on the easy side for me personally, so I think that would be a more rewarding experience. You also have fleet persistence, which means that instead of your fleet coming with you from level to level, so if you messed up a level completely, the next level is going to be harder, and if you really, really did well, your fleet will still be the same for the next mission. You can turn that off and use the default fleet for every mission if you really want to make a consistent experience instead of having a really, really shitty experience if you've had a really shitty game. And you get stars based on that. One more thing that's pretty cool is after you finish a mission, you can go back to previous missions and do them again with a different difficulty level, or maybe with the default fleet. So you don't have to replay the entire campaign. You can just pick the missions you like. Now, I'm gonna go dive into Kashar's approach here on normal difficulty, because I feel this is a map that displays quite a bit of the game overall, how well everything goes together, and you have a pretty decent selection of available units. So let's get into this. Now, this nice loading screen, it does its thing, and you can see this line where you can see the Capisi, that is you, and the Sakala, which is your ally. And you can see the line you've been following across the world map, which is a pretty nice little thing to have on your loading screen. You can see like, oh, well, we were there before, and now we're going to the right, and it's pretty nice version. Loading screens are a bit long in my opinion, but they're not exorbitantly long. I'm not sure how they will be if like on other systems, because I do run this off an SSD. But you'll find out sooner or later on your own. Now, one thing I am liking here is that every entry point into a mission gives you a little of this cutscene, and these are really well done with this nice, like almost oil paint or watercolor style of art. So this doesn't look that way, and it's pretty sad that I picked the one mission. Then here we go. So you can see this nice art style as well as pretty well done voice acting. I'm gonna shut up and let you listen to it for a second. So yeah, there's that. So the voice acting is pretty good. The story is very corny. It is the basic story you get in every RTS game, which is enemy has big weapon, get big weapon. And you fight in a series of battles that are more or less all the same mechanics. So StarCraft 2 did a really good job of combining new mechanics for their story. Missions, different than the actual multiplayer gameplay. They spent time and effort making mechanics specifically designed for the story and for the single player. Homeworld Desert of Kharak really doesn't do that. It does add story, and it does change things around a little bit compared to the multiplayer matches, but more or less everything in the game is what it will be in the multiplayer matches. So they haven't really put any extra effort into designing a single player campaign like standalone from the rest outside of the story. And it's well done, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing compared to the StarCraft 2 campaign was. So you get this little overview here when you dive into a mission, and this is an overview you'll be using a lot, and I'll show you exactly what that overview is in a second. And this tells you what to do. Come on game, I'm gonna play. Let me press space and skip this ahead a little bit. There we go, and that's me. That is my PC, and it tells me what I should do. Now, unlike other RTS games, Homeworld has always used a mobile platform as your base of operations. You don't build a huge amount of structures. You don't build refineries. You don't build factories. You don't build mission mining centers or production centers. You have your carrier. And in the previous Homeworld games, this used to be your mothership, your grand ship that everything was based out of. Here in Desert of Kharak is a sandcrawler sort of thing. Aircraft ground movement carrier, and it's pretty nice graphic style and pretty nice art style as well, but that is your main building. That's your only building. So let's get some mining operations going, and let's get some of these amazing things going. So I'm gonna start out by firing a missile in this direction, which is what the Kapisi does. There we go, missile launched, and then it goes on cooldown. So that's pretty good. My Kapisi was damaged quite heavily, and we have a couple of units here that can repair, so they're gonna get to repairing that. Now, we're already in combat, so we can already see that. The game uses a similar system to what the original Homeworld used to do. Is that different height variations allow for more or less damage being dealt to units. So lots of the combat you will do is trying to get a better advantage point to the enemy and make sure your enemy units live. And units fire on the move, which is also quite reminiscent of the Homeworld games, and you also see it in a lot of games that use a large number of units. Overall, oh, there we go. We have a nice little bomb here. We're gonna use Rachel Saget, who has a special ability, and get her to break some of this stuff.
On the move. Ready. Green line confirmed.
There we go. Rachel Saget, madam. Actually, I don't need to use her. I have resource mining here. And resource mining here. There. As you can see, if I press spacebar, I go into this tactical overlay, which shows me zooming areas and shows me my radius and shows quite a few bits of information, including resource points, enemy control turrets, and my objective. And when I zoom back in the game, it shows me my units. And you can see that you'll be using this overlay view quite a bit to get yourself everything sorted. You can see what kind of units you have based on the icons. For example, these sort of squares that are long are your scavengers or your harvesters. These epsilon thingies are support cruisers and battle cruisers and other cruisers. And these dots are smaller units, and if you zoom a little bit in here, they're turned into squares, which means they are armored units. So that is pretty good. And then you have these other kinds of icons giving you anti-air units. You already know what you are, and the enemy has consistent icons as well, so you can see what they have as well in this view. And when you zoom in, you can see these nice units. Now, I told you before that game looks pretty decent from a graphical standpoint. And if I look at this way, you're like, okay, fine, but you're zoomed out so far, it doesn't really matter where the details are. Well, let me go and zoom in. Let me go and zoom in quite a bit. I'm zoomed in so very far compared to this view and it still looks pretty nice. Now granted, this is an ultra settings, and there is definitely, as you can see, oh no, these look pretty terrible, these lightnings here, and oh no, it looks pretty jagged edges here and there, but really, look at this. The zoom is huge. That's pretty good. Okay.
This is the captain. New sector designated. Move out.
So let me go ahead and
Bomber to launch deck.
Bomber Rachel is taking fire. Respond.
we're gonna get her up and
Launch EMP.
launching an EMP bomb here.
Turret down. Let's get moving.
Here.
Alert. Strike fighter to
So the Calypso has a bunch of aircraft carriers you can build, and there's bombers, and there's fighters, and there's quite a few other things you can use to kill enemies. Obviously, enemy anti-air will wreck your face if you try to do that. So overall,
Strike fighter ready.
I'm not sure that is the smartest idea you can have, but it does do the thing. Oh damn, there go my fighters. Other than that, the game plays pretty much like an RTS. You build a couple of tanks, they start production. You'll have engineering here in the top left whenever you select your courier, and with research points and resource points you can research various things
on our way.
to get better upgrades, unlock new units like tactical bomber damage, missile battery has the ability to recharge speed, railgun for range, and the base runners for some turret and mine damage, and so on. There's also
Armored assault online.
Calypso herself as a cruiser has certain resources, I would say. It's the amount of energy available, and you can use these for various systems. Now you can't power all these systems at the same time. You can only power
Currently active.
a few systems at a time,
Heat levels are spiking.
which is detected by this heat temperature gauge. So if your temperature is too high, your unit will get damaged. You can operate a little bit on a higher temperature if you need to get out of a tight spot, but you will destroy your own cruiser and obviously lose the game when that happens. Now, resource collection are these little spots. There's blue and orange. The blue is for resource units. They call them construction units and resource units. Construction units are mostly used for general construction, and resource units are used for advanced stuff. So aircraft carriers cost quite a bit of the blue resource units, while just tanks cost very little compared to, you see, they cost 200 construction units, but only 4 of these resource units. And they also cost a little bit of your army's capacity. So there is that. So we're going to add a couple of these extra, put them all up front here, so we have all of that sorted.
See you feel.
And we'll see if we can't get anything done here. Now, I have some resource collection. They're going to hand in this support cruiser. If they don't have a support cruiser, they hand it in at the PC. So it's really important to park things near these resource nodes where you will keep getting resources. Once the resources are depleted, as you can see, this one is now depleted. That's it. That's your other resources, and you can just lose the game that way. Quite handedly, actually.
For command. Going mobile.
So what we're going to do is we're going to move our entire army south here, because there is a nice large node of resources here, but we also know there's some enemies there.
Operations update.
So what I'm going to do is
Have been drained.
launch a missile there and send these over here, while moving everything to control group 1 and sending it over here.
Engage and destroy.
Fleet group
Now, as you can see, movement here is done with this nice little overlay, and this overlay is really good because it shows exactly what you need to see in terms of height difference, so you can tactically plan any possible engagements. There we go.
Vehicle taking effective fire.
And Rachel moves her ass over. Fun fact is, she has an EMP ability which doesn't exist in the rest of the game, making her quite strong to have. If she dies, you lose the game. She's one of those important VIPs you have in the match. Well, as I said, the game doesn't change a lot of things for the campaign, but there are certain abilities and characters they have added specifically for the story. So there's some of that, but there's nowhere near the extent of StarCraft 2, for example.
Destination marked.
So let's go kill these heavy turrets here, so we can start resource mining here. I'm gonna send her over here as well to clear that debris. Now this is basically how the game plays. Like any other strategy game would. You have different types of units, and they do quite a few different things. Armored tanks, obviously, shoot. You have railguns that are specifically designed to pierce armor. You have these support cruisers that are designed to provide support, such as repairs. and some basic AA capabilities. Most of the units in the game are designed around this rock paper scissors mechanic where certain units destroy other units. There is no real soft counters, so everything you do is either a hard counter or destroyed. There's a couple of other things as well. As you can see, there is some different cruisers, such as an assault cruiser, a battle cruiser, and an artillery cruiser. They do exactly as they say in the tin. They're just bigger versions of these units. They cost a lot more, and they're quite a bit stronger overall.
This is Rachel. Go ahead. Copy that. Coordinates confirmed. Runner copy.
And all of that is obviously being built by the Capisi, your main carrier. So that is the basis of the gameplay. You will play each mission until you finish it, and if you don't finish it, you can retry. And this is the army I had from the previous mission. So my army looked pretty tiny because I had done pretty badly on the previous mission in terms of what I was capable of.
Strike fighter coordinates dialed in.
Attack course set. Salvage your copies. Displace to that CU field.
So yeah, that brings us down to, that is it. This is the game. You upgrade, you research, you kill your enemy. And the game is pretty good at that. Now there's two factions. And you can play either one in multiplayer, whichever one you prefer. They don't really do anything different from one from the other. Their units look a little bit different, and they have a few different units. But in all things, they are more or less identical. They have each have their bombers, each have their aircraft carriers. They each have their anti-air, their anti-armor, their anti-light vehicle. So they play more or less the same. They just look a little bit different. So I'm going to jump out of the single player mode and show you a skirmish match that was pre-recorded and talk about the various tactics and things I will see coming forward for the game. So, skirmish. Before we dive into a skirmish match I pre-recorded, I'm going to show you the multiplayer options as well as what I think the game's competitive side can and will do. Now, the multiplayer comes in 1v1, 2v2 and 3v3. And you have some fleet customization options, I'll show you in a second, as well as leaderboards. Now, you can do an auto match, which is exactly what it says, an unranked auto match, exactly what it says, and then you can browse games available open to the public, which is basically what every other RTS game has, more or less. The leaderboards is mostly people from various review sites that are either very bad or somewhat good. And then you have 2v2 and 3v3. There we go. It's interesting that Gearbox are the ones on the top of the ranking. I see some match fixing Gearbox. I know what you're doing. Obviously, they're the developers who playtested the game. But that is more or less the menu. You have some friends list options, but it's telling me to downloading. I don't have friends. There, it's empty. So that is the ranking system in a nutshell. You have some win ratios, you have some artifacts and wins and losses and so on and so forth. My own stats displayed here in the front of the thingy say all 0 because obviously I can't play multiplayer as I do not have anyone to play it with here in this point. And you have fleet customization, which allows you to change the colors of your fleet. So you can be Coalition or Gaussian. These float, these don't. They're a bit different, but that's really it. You have a primary color you can pick. I picked a nice little shade of blue because I felt that being in a desert environment, they deserve a little bit of blue in their lives. And then I picked a nice little, let me go with yellow. There, blue and yellow, no, that's the song. And that's gonna be your in-game colors. So that's pretty nice. You can customize this. You're doing just the red guy or the blue guy or the black guy or whatever. You're these two colors. Yeah, that's an improvement, definitely. So once you accept that, you can go either unranked, ranked, or pick a game from an open server. And that's really it. Now, I don't know how good this game's competitive side will be. So I'm gonna go into a skirmish match I pre-recorded and explain to you what I think is going to happen with the various multiplayer options and how this game's competitive side might pan out. So strap in. I'm gonna jump cut you to the skirmish loading screen. So skirmish mode has the same features as the online component, and it should really, because it's basically the same thing. I've added an AI opponent here, and I'm gonna play against it, obviously. I'm making Gaussian. Now, one of the main concerns I have regarding the skirmish as well as the online component is the map selection. There's only 6 maps, 2 1v1 maps, 2 2v2 maps, and 1 3v3 map, which is a ridiculous tiny number of maps to have. Holy shit, that's too few. For a game that's mostly going to be having its longevity of the online component, you need multiple maps, you need more maps. Even if you have a map rotation, much like StarCraft has a certain amount of maps are ranked, it still has a ton of other maps you can play if you feel like it. This doesn't, it has 6 maps, that's it, good luck. Oh man, that I think is a very bad thing, so we'll see where we go from there. But I'd like to add that there are several win conditions, so there's several ways to win the game. Now, you could see that earlier a little bit, but the win conditions are basically you either destroy the enemy carrier or you get artifacts. Now I disabled the artifact mode for this map because I feel it's too simple with an AI, but in a game with real opponents, the contention around these artifacts will create a very nice way to manage areas of conflict. So people are not allowed to turtle up. They can't. They are forced into playing against you. They're forced into combat, they're forced into creating army, they're forced to advance. So it's a really good way to create conflict. But against an AI, obviously it's very simple to just blockade the AI and prevent it from doing anything. Other than that, one of the major differences between this and the campaign is the amount of resource available in each of these wrecks and nodes. The campaign, there's like 500, 200, 1500. These have 7,500 to 15,000. So you don't need to move as much with your command carrier. On one hand, that's a bit of a shame. On the other hand, it's understandable because otherwise you'd litter the entire map with resource nodes. And the games would never progress to a higher tier of research because you have to start from scratch. Now, one of the main differences between the single player and the skirmish mode, which you just saw me do now, is fire that projectile out of my carrier. This increases my army capacity and it costs resources. So to increase your army capacity, you fire out these and it goes up to a certain threshold, which is 125. Now I've made a bunch of these scavenger gatherers, these harvesters, and they're bringing it back to the carrier. And I've just turned on some research. And we're just waiting on this game to get started first, the AI. Now, if I had a smart AI, he would probably rush forward. There we go, I'm building armored units. If he had a smart AI, he'd probably rush forward with light attack vehicles, which I've skipped, in favor of economy, and destroy me completely. Now, obviously, the carrier has some defense, if capabilities, but only 1 energy by default, so you have to research extra energy on your carrier as well. And there we go. Here is the enemy's light attack vehicles. And they're coming in. But, I mean, 2 light attack vehicles are not really going to do much damage. Now, I'm going to leave this game to play in the background while I discuss a few things. First things first is a competitive scene of this game. I honestly doubt there is going to be one. Mainly because even StarCraft, the jewel of RTS gaming, has had a lot of issues getting everything up and going in this sphere. Only Korea is going strong, and even that is under a lot of pressure. There is no other strategy game out there that has a healthy esports scene. Now, you don't need an esports scene to be successful. Look at Supreme Commander and Forged Alliance that still have the Forged Alliance Forever project, which has thousands of players. Even Total Annihilation still has many players. And things like Company of Heroes is obviously a very good RTS game, no doubt about that. But the last year or two of releases, such as Grey Goo and Active Aggression, have been commercial flops because apparently nobody wants to play a strategy game. I don't know why, I love them, but apparently that is the market. Now, I dearly hope I'm wrong here, and this game has a healthy community for a very long time. But for that to happen, I feel the developers need to add a few more things to make this game actually have a sustained community. One of those things is obviously chat rooms. Another of the things is way more maps. It's tournaments. It's either automated tournaments, much like StarCraft 2 has added in the latest expansion. It's modding. It's some other form of content creation that binds people to a game and keeps them going and playing. Because right now, after you've played, I'm going to say about 20 matches versus real opponents, you've probably seen what the game has to offer. There's not a lot of variety in the races, outside of some graphical variety. There's very little variety in the maps. And even though there's some variety in the game modes, that will only sustain you so far. Now, there is definitely a variety in the mechanics themselves in the game. As you can see, I skipped my light attack vehicles and I went with armored vehicles at once. The reason I did that is because I feel that if I can survive the first initial attack from light attack vehicles with my carrier, that will bring me in a very good spot economically, because I'll have produced way more economy than my opponent, and obviously I'll have armor going up and I can destroy my opponent, because obviously he will not have the same economy and will not be able to outproduce me. In this matchup versus an AI, that will obviously work. I don't know if it will work against a real player, but who knows, who cares really at this point, because there's no real players yet. But we'll see how that pans out in reality. I really wonder if my tactic is actually going to be the meta. I doubt it, because I'm terrible at these sort of things, but who knows. Now, one of the main differences between skirmish mode and actual gameplay of the single player campaign is that you have to research everything, whereas in the campaign certain things are unlocked and certain other things are just made available to you as the game progresses, because you have a persistent army going forward in campaigns. Unless you actively disable that, upgrades are available to you, so you don't have to do any of that sort of thing. Now, I would like to mention two more things, and then I'll leave this video to roll out until the end of the game. My worries for this game are, even though it's a very good renderation of Homeworld and it's a really good game overall, I feel that the short campaign, coupled with a very lackluster map pool and support for the multiplayer component of the game, will really not bring this game the lasting success it, in my opinion, does deserve. I feel that the developer needs to add upgrades, add patches, add something of the kind to this game where people are going to keep playing, and I'm not sure they will right now, which means this game will come out of the gates and fizzle and die like basically all other RTS that have come out in the last couple of years. I hope I'm wrong, I dearly hope I'm wrong, but experience has shown me that this is not per se the case. Now, I would like to add one last caveat here, is that I really enjoy this game. And if you buy this game now, you also get a discount coupled with if you own the Homeworld Remastered Collection. Now, Homeworld Remastered Collection I definitely recommend. Those are amazing games. And I do recommend this game as an addition to the Homeworld cycle. But as a game outside of the Homeworld sphere of influence, I am not overly impressed by what it has offered to the table. Before I sign off, I'm going to leave this video to roll. I want to finish up with the last single thing. And this is a message to the developer. Please, for the love of God, add more maps. And please, for all things holy, add a way for people to create a community in the game, either through persistent chat rooms, through automated tournaments, or some other form or way. Now, I can't speak for the balance, I can't speak for the competitive meta, but I do know that these things are going to have people either stay or drop the game after a couple dozen matches because they don't feel involved in some form or manner with their clans, with their teams, with their friends, and so on. We've seen this in every other game that has come out over the last 2 decades. So, thank you for watching. If you like this video, press the like button below. If you don't like it, press the dislike button. If you want to see more content here on GuyLogic like this, press that subscribe button, and we will keep delivering reviews and in-depth commentary on video games for the rest of existence right here on GuyLogic. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Cruiser ready. Hostile strike craft down. Ready. Going mobile. We're clearing out. Attention.
The command carrier must place additional fleet capacity deployables. Fleet capacity deployable out.
Reporting. Enemy armor on approach. Green line confirmed. Reading. Combat relay. Hostile production cruiser eliminated.
Armored assault modifications carried out.
Support cruiser under attack. Immediate fire support on that position. Counter. Redirect fire. Roger. Hostile light attack vehicle detected. Get this cruiser moving. Sensors post is under fire. Armor, go ahead. Salvager has been engaged. Make ready. Crew ready. Strike craft destroyed. Copy. Displacing now. Cruiser reading. Destination set. Moving.
Armored assault online.
Carrier here. We've got hostile on sensors. Confirm visual.
Armored assault operational.
Armored vehicle is taking fire. carrier. On me when we get back. Acknowledged. Got a room full of armor moving out. Be advised. Enemy support vehicle authenticated. On our way. Enemy support craft neutralized. We're cleared to push up. Cruiser ready. Go ahead. Reposition. Enemy salvager destroyed. Reading. Reposition. Online. Reading. Coordinates confirmed. Ready. Send. Ready. Set new heading. Enemy production cruiser has appeared in the AO. Move out. Ready for command. Copy. Coordinates set. Attention.
Deploying field logistics module.
Enemy light attack vehicle marked on approach. Armor vehicle taking effective fire. Ready. New heading set. Support cruiser under attack. Immediate fire support on that position. Be ready for contact. Ready. Receiving. Keep steady. Watch the arm. Enemy salvager neutralized. Op ready. Maneuver and engage. We read you. Mobilizing.
Salvager online.
Prime charges. Salvager copies. Reading. Ready. Punch it. We're clear to move and engage. Ready. Send. Battle report. Enemy production cruiser destroyed. Go for orders. Attention. We're ready for orders. Displace to that CU field. This is the captain. Armored vehicle is taking fire. For orders. Make ready. Reading. Target set. Attention.
Carrier production system capacity has been enhanced. Strike fighter ready for service.
Reading.
Strike fighter coordinates dialed in.
Attack vector dialed in. We're in the fight. Battle report. Hostile carrier has been destroyed. Great job out there.
Yeah.
Hostile forces are retreating. Hold position and await further orders. Excellent work.